So almost one 5-star book in the month of August. We're going to talk today about what I did manage to read this month. And yeah, there are some that are carrying through. They are kind of TBR fails. They're carrying into September. So I thought, you know what? At the same time as I recap August, let's do a September TBR as well. I'm going to make it real convenient so you've got it all here in one place. Sit back, grab a drink. We're going to have some fun today. Hey everybody, welcome back to BellTube. Yeah, we're going to try to do this one as unedited as possible today. Before I get into the books, I have to say thank you to all the brand new members of the BellTube community. Yeah, I don't know why, but the algorithm at YouTube's gods kind of smiled on the channel over the last few weeks, and we've picked up like an incredible amount of new people here to the channel that didn't know we existed before. So, welcome on in. Today we're going to talk about what I read, like I said, in August, what's going to happen in September. We might have a special guest drop by. I'm not too sure. And of course, I've got a one for the road for you at the end of the video. Let's get started. No more waiting. What did I read? What was that almost 5-star book? It was The Devils, as it indicated probably to you on the thumbnail, by Mr. Joe Abercrombie, one of my favorite authors in fiction, period. This book captivated me in a way that I totally did not expect. Let's start with the very, very beginning, which is a page that I normally skip, and I am sorry to all of you who love maps. I tend to kind of gloss over the maps, but this map was incredibly intriguing to me because if you're unaware, this is sort of like an alternate history fantasy story, and we've got Europe here, but it's as if other people have won wars that didn't in our timeline, right? So Troy is a big place in this. There's just a lot of other ones. Carthage is in here. Lots of places that didn't win where they were before, but they did here. So what's The Devils about, you might ask? Well, if you are familiar with DC Comics, you might be familiar with a group called the Suicide Squad, right? These are a bunch of criminals that are kept under lockup until there's a crazy mission that needs to be accomplished. Something that is above and beyond what they'd even bother superheroes with, because it's that kind of dangerous and just a little bit sketchy that you wouldn't want Superman or Batman being involved in any way. No, you call the Suicide Squad. They're a bunch of former villains, kind of turned, their powers for the good. And if you are familiar with James Gunn's new show, Creature Commandos, which I think also came from a comic book, but you'll have to correct me in the comments on that. I don't know either way, but this book is very much a mashup, in my opinion, of the Suicide Squad meets the Creature Commandos. And what's even more, I think, coincidental, or maybe intentional, I guess I'd have to ask the author, but the person that is in charge of this group from afar is very much like an Amanda Waller character, if you're familiar with the DC universe. And these devils, so to speak, these kind of career criminals slash monsters, are sent in to take, a princess to another part of Europe or another part of that continent to reclaim her throne and all the shenanigans that ensue. And yeah, I do intentionally use the word shenanigans here because while this is a fantasy story, it's at first and foremost kind of a fun adventure story. So if you're coming into this book wanting something very serious, you're not going to find it here. This is a book that really focuses on humor and fun and banter. Now, if you're like me and that's your favorite part of Joe Abercrombie's writing style, you're going to love The Devils. If you are more plot driven, if you are more magic system driven, if you aren't really into that kind of Suicide Squad, see, I'm not editing, Suicide Squad kind of monster-esque as our main heroes, you might not like this story. I could not get enough. Now, I was reading this book between a Malazan book and between one of the Wars of Light and Shadow books by Janny Wirtz, and this came for me at a perfect time because I needed something that had a sense of adventure like those, series do, but also had a ton of humor, which Malazan does to some degree. Wars of Light and Shadow does to a little bit of a degree, but neither one of those authors write like Joe Abercrombie, where it's kind of a humor-first sensibility. I loved this. And so you may be asking, why aren't you giving it 5 stars, Brian, if you loved it so much? I am notoriously stingy about giving anything 5 stars. It has to be kind of like life-changing or possibly even just alter my outlook on the situations and the worlds around me in a way that even if the story itself wasn't overly compelling, I could recognize that, the story has real impact. That's why I gave a book like Cloud Atlas 5 stars. My personal enjoyment of it was all right. There was parts of it I really didn't like. Most of it I thought was fine. But as an overall book, Cloud Atlas was a 5 for me. Same with Piranesi back there, although I did thoroughly enjoy Piranesi much more than Cloud Atlas. The Devils, I think, does exactly what it set out to do. Have a really fun adventure story. And to me, it reached past the peak of a 4-star, but not quite to the level of a 5-star, where I'm going to be thinking about the Devils, as time moves forward. I probably won't be thinking about the Devils again until the sequel book comes out, or I understand that director James Cameron is going to adapt the Devils to a movie. I'm sure I'll be thinking about the Devils then as well. Let's move on to the next book. By the way, everything's timestamped, so if you are not into hearing about any particular book, feel free to hit the timestamp and move on. Next book that I read in the month of August is a lit RPG. It is book 2 in Discount Dan's Backroom Bargains. This book is called Cul-de-Sac Carnage. All right, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here on this one because I don't generally get into sequel books in lit RPG worlds, or we would be here for 3 hours because some of these series go on 14, 20 bucks plus. And some of these books themselves, like Wandering In, are just huge. And, we're not going to spend all day on the video talking about that. I will say the Discount Dan series, this is written by author James Hunter. I interviewed him on the channel. I'll put a card right here if you want to, get a real good sense of what James Hunter is about. But if you like Dungeon Crawler Carl and that type of comedic sensibility, the Discount Dan series might be something you want to give a try to. The audio is really good. That's how I listen to the book, or that's how I consume the book. And it's a lot of the same flair as Dungeon Crawler Carl, not as good of a story, if I'm being straight with you guys. And it does lean into horror elements quite a bit much more than Dungeon Crawler Carl. And it, there's some graphic kind of visceral stuff that is more, I'll go back to more of the horror element than Dungeon Crawler Carl, but it's good. He's got a funny sense of humor. There are plenty of things that remind me of DCC and plenty of stuff that, James Hunter is really writing his own series. So did I like it? Yeah. Would I give it a star rating? I don't know. It's probably a 3.5 or a 4-star book for me on any given day. These series are really hard to rate individual books. So far, between book 1 and book 2, those are the only ones that are out so far. I liked them, they're fun, they're entertaining, they're light reads. Now, you might be asking, well, Brian, why would you need a light read? Well, I'll tell you why, because here's my TBR fail for August. It was not a total fail, but I'm filming this today on September 4th. You can see where I'm at in the book. It's maybe at about the 65% mark. And this book, Malazan Book of the Fallen, book number 7, Reaper's Gale. I am greatly enjoying this book. I absolutely love it. That's why it's not done yet, because I didn't want to rush through this and just to kind of complete this imaginary deadline date of August 31st, all of my August books have to be done. In fairness to other booktubers who do that, I get it. I was one of you at a time. And it was like, I will stay up all night long because I promised I would get this book read by the end of the month. And I realized something quite important. There's nobody watching over me that says I have to finish this exactly on August 31st. I had a personal insight there, and so I let it kind of drag a bit into September. The other thing, if you've not read Malazan, it is very readable. So don't get intimidated by the, oh, you know, Malazan's so difficult and all that. Yeah, it's a little bit challenging, mostly to just remember all the characters because there's so many of them. But what you'll find in Malazan is very dense writing, and there's something going on in literally every paragraph. There's no kind of throwaway pages anywhere. So if you want to follow the story, if you want to have any sense of what's actually going on, you have to take your time with it. It's not a series that you're ever going to want to skim through, speed read, any of that, because honestly, if that's the plan, I'd skip the series in totality. This requires focus, and it slowed my reading pace down considerably. So I am starting the month of September with where I left off in August. Yeah, that's the month before September. I know, calendar. I don't know. Anyway, that's where we're at there. So let's talk about what we're gonna read once I get done with Reaper's Gale. Okay, the next book on the list for September is gonna be a Chronomancy book. Yeah, if you're not familiar with the Chronomancy, I almost said that wrong, and I invented the Chronomancy, so that would be very sad. That's a reading group. It's a kind of a buddy club, you know, book reading club, whatever you want to call it. It's myself. It's John Minton from Talking Story. It is Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, and the one and only Dr. Philip Chase from Philip Chase's Best of Fantasy. We get together once a quarter. One of us picks a book, we read it, and we have a live discussion about it. Now, these books, we generally try to make them outside of our normal TBR. So they might be a little bit of a different genre. They're almost always standalone books because we're not doing this, you know, as a whole big series. And we try to keep them under about 400 pages just because those other three booktubers, they've got bigger channels than I do, and also their TBRs are usually a little bit longer. So coming up, after I get done with Reaper's Gale, I will be reading Conan the Barbarian, The House of the Dragon. Is that what it's called? No, it's called The Hour of the Dragon. Yeah, House of the Dragon is a TV show, Brian. The Hour of the Dragon, that is what it's called. And it's actually, from what I understand, the only actual sort of full-length Conan novel that Robert E. Howard wrote. The rest of them are very short. They're almost like novellas or short stories built into, you know, either magazines or then compiled into a compendium of books or of stories. This is different. This is a couple of hundred pages, I think, and Philip Chase selected it. So I am interested in Conan a lot. I grew up watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. One of my very favorite characters in Malazan, I think, is kind of modeled after Conan the Barbarian. Witness, if you know what I just said, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so there's going to be that. What's coming up after that? Well, it was a short break of a short book because here we go again. The Wars of Light and Shadow. Janny Wirt's Grand Conspiracy. This is book 5 in the Wars of Light and Shadow. This is a big book too, and Janny Wirt's will read dense, and it does require focus. So this could take up a significant amount of September, and you'll see what I've kind of got sprinkled in and peppered in around this book, because really once I finish Reaper's Gale, this is the main focus for September. And I don't know that it necessarily would be if I was not in a very large read-along, only because my brain's about to explode trying to do Malazan and the Wars of Light and Shadow every other month, bouncing back and forth. That's maybe why we haven't seen as many videos here, but I'm looking forward to Grand Conspiracy. I'm also really looking forward to our group conversation. It's going to happen sometime in October over on the channel Library Unbounded, hosted by one of my favorite BookTube personalities, Sylvia, and there'll be more details on that as we get closer, but as usual, you guys, I am going to recommend The Wars of Light and Shadow with a big caveat. If you are not already reading Malazan, I recommend The Wars of Light and Shadow. If you are not already reading The Wheel of Time or The Realm of the Elderlings and you're kind of barreling through those series, I would wait to get to Wars of Light and Shadow till you complete those, because It's a lot on the mind to be going back and forth as often as I am, but nobody ever said that I was smart, so there you go. All right, what's up next? After I get done with Grand Conspiracy, assuming there's time, I sure hope there is, I want to read this collection of short stories by Susannah Clarke. This is called The Ladies of Grace Adieu, and I'm actually pretty fired up to know what's in here because, like a lot of you, I've only read 2 Susannah Clarke books, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I really liked, and Piranesi, which is always kind of behind me on the shelf, which is an all-time classic for me, even though it's a short book. I don't think that I can think of, again, this is how you know this is unedited, I can't think off the top of my head of any authors better than Susannah Clarke at creating atmosphere. To me, where I was talking about Joe Abercrombie kind of being right at the top of the mountain when it comes to comedic value in books, when it comes to, writing atmosphere and dreamscapes and things of that nature, Susannah Clarke, for me, even in just the 2 books that I've read of hers, she stands at the top of the mountain. It's pretty incredible. There's some others up there too. Janny's up there, Robin Hobb's up there, etc., etc. There you go, Sylvia. But yeah, I'm excited for this. And if I can get to it, I forgot I ordered this book, you guys. I backed to Kickstarter, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago by author Richard Kadrey. If you've been around this channel much, you know that I'm a giant Richard Kadrey fan because of his series Sandman Slim, Urban Fantasy, and he put this Kickstarter out for a novella called Kamikaze L'Amour. Now, I did not bring my glasses today, so I'm not reading you the back of this, but it is a cool cover, and I like Richard Kadrey's work, and it, this is wide margins, this is, like double space type. This will not take me long to get through it all, and I've yet to find a Richard Kadrey book that I didn't find something in to love, so I'm pretty fired up for that. Let's talk about some audiobooks that I plan to get to in September. One of them I've already started, and it is The Primal Hunter 4 by author Zogarth. Okay, so like I just said it a moment ago, I'm not going to go into great detail in Lit RPG long-running series because I'm only on book 4 of Primal Hunter, and I want to say there's at least 10 books out there, might even be more. It's good. I'm enjoying it. If you've not, seen my Lit RPG explained video, maybe I'll throw a card right up here for that because a lot of you guys are hearing this term being thrown around quite a bit over the last year or two, Lit RPG. What is it? How do I know if I like it or not? What is Dungeon Crawler Carl? All that kind of stuff. I did a video a few weeks ago, and it'll basically give you 5 things about Lit RPG that are different than typical fantasy, so you know kind of what you're going to be getting into before you, take that plunge and see if you want to do it. The Primal Hunter, for me, it's good. Is it great? Not yet, but it's not bad enough that I'm stopping the series. So I thought book 2 so far was probably a little bit the weakest. I really did enjoy book 1 and book 3. So far, I want to say I'm only like maybe 15-20% into book 4, and it's pretty much more of the same of book 3. So I suspect we're going to have a positive review when I recap what I've read in September. What else am I going to read? All right, now this one I'm a little bit nervous for. And books don't usually make me nervous, and here's why I'm nervous. The last book I didn't really like. This is kind of got one foot in fantasy and one foot in Lit RPG and sort of a cultivation story, and yeah, we are talking about Andrew Rowe's Arcane Ascension series, and the book is book 6, and it is called A Brief History of Chronomancy. Now, I'll have the little thing here because I'm going to be listening to this on audio, so I'll put the graphic there. Oh, I don't know what to say about this one, guys. I have some trepidations because books 1, 2, and 3 I really liked a lot. Book 4 I thought was sort of middling. Book 5 I did not care for. It was one of my most disappointing reads of the year so far. But I can't just stop the series because of one bad book. Otherwise, there'd be plenty of times in series like He Who Fights with Monsters, or sometimes even in the Dresden Files, where I find a particular book not up to the standard of the rest of the series. Looking at You, Full Moon in the Dresden Files, and of course I'm looking at the last book in Arcane Ascension, book 5, When Wizards Follow Fools. I don't want to let one experience of one book wreck me on the whole series. But I have, like I said, some trepidations about book 6, because if it tracks better, it's going to be this giant sigh of relief because I love Andrew Rowe's writing. If it tracks the same or worse, then I'm going to have to give some consideration in deciding if I'm going to keep this series going for me or not, because the TBR is forever long. I should also say thank you to the patrons of this channel. And also, one thing I do want to say this time around, because I always forget to mention it. If you are an author and you want me to read and review your book, and this kind of goes for every booktuber. Yes, I am speaking for every booktuber today. I got everybody's permission to do this, so I'm going to do it. No, I didn't. Anyway, become friends with the person first. And how do you do that? Well, you sort of leave comments. You have a little bit of banter back and forth. You tell them that maybe you like their channel and why you like their channel. Do not, and I repeat, do not, and this comes from a guy who's made his entire career in sales and marketing. Do not blindly send an EPUB book out and say, please read and review my book. Thank you very much. Because a lot of us get these all the time. There is no way we could even contemplate reading some of them. Mike has like a second room in his house of books that, you know, have been graciously sent to him, but there's just no way in the world he has any time to read them. Now, I'm not going to speak for Mike. I'm not going to speak for anybody, but just I will speak to you authors, kind of mano a mano here, saying, look, I'm a sales and marketing guy. You've got to establish some rapport and trust first and foremost before you try to make any kind of a sale. If you do not, you're probably going to wind up in the I'll get to it maybe someday or never pile, and that'll be that. Now, I've tried to respond to all the emails that I get, you know, asking for such a thing, and I try to be as polite as I can, but just understand that most of us, unless your name is like Daniel Green or Murphy Napier or a couple of the others, most of us do this, you know, just as a kind of a part-time hobby. There's no real cash involved on our side. We don't get paid to read books. So what you're asking is a lot. You're asking for time. And I think before you ask for somebody's time, you should try to develop some rapport with that person so they want to read your books, right? So it happens all the time. I'll give you another example there. Then we're going to get into some upcoming stuff. Another great example is Joe Byrne, JCM Byrne. So he's got this great series out called The Hybrid Helix. And you've heard me talk about this. And book 1 is called Wistful Ascending. And these are independently published books. But Joe made it a point to like comment on my stuff and be aware of what's going on my channel. We've had some back and forth. So when he then asked me, hey, can I send you some books? And if you ever get some time, maybe read one and let me know what you think. You don't have to review it on the channel, but I just wanted to give these to you because I like your show. That is going to work way better every time on me and probably 99% of other booktubers than just getting a package in the mail from somebody named JCM Byrne who I've never talked to, no idea who they are, and there's 6 books sitting there. So that's my life lesson with that one. And that wasn't even the one for the road today. So we are going up. Wait. Oh, you know what? I just heard a knock at the door. Now, folks, I have to preface some of you because some of you have not been around the channel all that long. You're relatively newcomers to BellTube. From time to time, we do have some special guests here, and they vary quite a bit in terms of both quality, knowledge, entertainment value, and just really what they provide to the channel BellTube. Well, today I woke up and there was a note that I needed to have a case of whipped cream here, a couple of keyboards here, Pop-Tarts, but no blueberry Pop-Tarts. I'm not sure what that means. Ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you have been waiting with bated breath for his return. Some of you have been very glad he's been gone, hospitalized. We don't know where he is, but he's back. I give you once again, for the first time since at least February, the one and only synth pop icon of the 80s, Mr. Rick Thunder. Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Thunder. I'm back, and that's a fact. Okay, anyways, a lot of you have been wondering, Rick, where have you been the last 5 or 6 months? We missed you here on the channel. Well, as you know, I am a synth pop icon. If some of you guys are brand new, I was a huge synth pop icon in the 80s. But unfortunately, in the early 90s and in the mid 90s and in the late 90s, I was the victim of a series of hot tub related accidents. And they caused me a lot of hospital time, a lot of coma time. So what have I been doing for the last 5 months? Well, I've been reading this book called When Androids Dream, or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Now, I got a story. When I was having some coma time in the hospital, me, Rick Thunder, synth pop icon from the 80s, I also had a dream, a coma dream. And in that dream, Rick Thunder was an android. And that's a fact. Now, in the dream, I want you to go with me. In the dream, it happened that I dreamt of a sheep. And I was an android in the dream. So, do androids dream of electric sheep? Yes! The answer is absolutely yes, because I am Rick Thunder. Now, also, that's a fact. So, what else have I been doing? Well, as you know, I am a world-class songwriter. I've been writing songs since the 80s, right? And when I'm not hospitalized due to a series of hot tub accidents, I write some of the best songs in the world. So, a few months back, I'm not supposed to say this online, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm Rick Thunder, and that's a fact. Some people called me from a publishing house, and they said, "Hey, Rick Thunder, would you like to write a song? Would you like to collaborate with us?" And I said, "I don't know. It depends upon the song. Because I'm a synth pop kind of guy, right? It's got to be the right kind of song." And they said, "Rick Thunder, at least 75% of the song is already written, but we need you to come in and write the bridge and write the outro and write how that song finishes, because you're Rick Thunder, and that's a fact, and you can write great songs." So it's true. Me, Rick Thunder, has been asked to co-write the rest of A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, I like that name of the song. I don't know what the first part about the song's about, but I've got the lyrics. There's hot tubs involved. I heard there's dragons in the story. We're gonna have dragons that breed hot tubs. That's right. And there's gonna be a ton of series of accidents, a lot of hot tub related accidents in that dream, because it's me, Rick Thunder, and that's fact. And there's gonna be hot tub breathing dragons. So much more to tell you about A Song of Ice and Fire. It's gonna be one of my greatest hits for sure. I will see you guys soon, and that's fact. Well, thank you, Rick. That is certainly some exciting news. I don't know if I believe it, but you know what? We're all just, kind of hanging out in Rick's world. He's living the dream, apparently, and we are all, I guess, side characters in that. Thanks, Rick. I guess I'll see you soon. All right, let's talk about some upcoming videos and some plans I've got for the channel. Then we're going to do one for the road. All right, yeah, keep looking off here because I've got some bullet points I don't want to forget. You guys, the last time I made a video, I think we had like 4,900 subscribers or something like that. And all of a sudden now we're approaching 6,000. And I had said like a year and a half ago, when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I will do a part 2 of a particular video that I did in my very first month on BookTube, which I think is November of 2023. We did a video here called Epic Rock Pairings Volume 1. And what I did, or what our host did, I should say, is take some fantasy and sci-fi series and pair them up with the perfect pairing of a rock band in who they would be, perfect with. Just a good mesh. Well, that was almost 2 years ago, and I had said as soon as we get to 5,000, I'll see if we do a Volume 2. Guess what? We're almost at 6,000, so it's time. It's time to do Rock and Roll Epic Pairings Volume 2. Volume 2, if you are in France or French Canada. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's coming up. What else coming up? Oh, so the Illuminati read that I mentioned before is going to be over on Philip's channel on September 17th. I want to say it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't quote me on that. It'll show up in the thumbnail, and we've got time for me to get you the proper information there. Another really cool thing that we're going to do on BellTube this month, I've got this planned out. We don't have the technical stuff sorted out yet, but the aforementioned Sylvia from Library Unbounded. If you are unaware of her channel, it'll be linked in the description. Literally, quit watching me, go watch her. She's better than I am at this. But she's invented a game called The Lord of the Reads, and it's a TBR game. And I think it's the best one on BookTube, bar none. And if you've been on, BellTube for a little while, you know my kind of dissatisfaction with doing TBR videos in the first place, because I kind of find them not as creatively interesting to do as some of the other videos that we do here. So Sylvia and I had a thought. What if I played the Lord of the Rings game, or the Lord of the Reads game, I should say, with her on camera at the same time, all the way from Bulgaria, and she can move the pieces around and select the cards, and I have to figure out what the October TBR is going to be. We're going to film that and release it sometime at the end of September. So it is something to definitely look forward to. I'm fired up to play it. I am nervous because guess what? I have Toll the Hound's Malazan Book of the Fallen, number 8, coming up in October, and that's like 5 books as it is, and sometimes on her TBR game, it's insane. She has to read like 12 books in a month. So whether or not I have a TBR fail or a TBR success for October sort of depends on how that game goes, but I am pretty fired up for it. Let's do one for the road today, and I'll let you be on your way. One for the road. All right, if you're brand new here, this is where I just kind of talk about whatever off the cuff of my, brain that I'm thinking about today. And if you can get some value out of it for your own personal life, terrific. If not today, maybe you'll go back and watch another video or watch this some other time, and it'll be more kind of time appropriate for you. I want to talk about the concept and the idea that a lot of us do in hustle culture, and it's basically the equivalent of spinning plates. Now, what do I mean by that? Back in the day, and John mentioned this on his channel the other day, and him and I are like telepathic. It's weird because I was planning to discuss this before his video came out, and he starts talking about the vaudeville guys that are on TV. And yes, back in the day, we actually watched the TV and there was channels and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, there was these performers and they'd have these sticks in the air. They'd have these sticks coming straight into the air vertically, put into the ground, and they would take a plate and they would spin that plate. And then as soon as that plate started spinning, they'd go to the next one and the next one. And pretty soon you've got like 12 poles, all with plates being spun, and that person is running around back and forth spinning all those plates, and it's just wild to see that in motion without letting a plate drop. A lot of us are sort of in hustle culture these days, where every element of our life feels like one of those plates, and if we take our eye off of it for too long, the plate will stop spinning and eventually fall and shatter. And I am here to tell you that while it is really good to have the ability to spin a lot of plates to what they started calling multitasking back in the day, there are problems with it. One, it never really gives you time to focus on any particular plate. You're more concerned about keeping a number of plates going at one time rather than watching one plate really, really spin well. And I think that that's a kind of a challenge that we have in this culture, particularly as it, relates to multitasking, because we are drawn in a million different directions all the time. Maybe it's your work, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your school. Who knows? If you have 2 or 3 jobs, it could be all of them. It could be your hobbies. It could be reading. Do you play a musical instrument? I do. It could be that. Do you work out at a gym? I do that sometimes too. Obviously, look at me, not enough, but sometimes one of those plates is going to the gym. So what do you do here, right? So what's the answer to this? Well, I don't know the exact answer, but I do know that if all you do is run around and make sure all those plates are spinning at the same time, simultaneously, sooner or later, you're only going to cap at a certain level of expertise and a certain level of quality because you're spending more time getting too many things done just okay than a handful of things being done to an excellent or above excellent level. And that's my challenge here for you today. Maybe grab a piece of paper, or maybe put it in your phone notes, or maybe on your computer or whatever, and actually ask yourself a question. How many plates am I currently spinning right now? And rate them as, levels of importance. Now, honestly, if you have a family, if you've got kids, wife, husband, whatever, spouse, significant other, partner, maybe they're the plate number 1. Maybe that's the one that absolutely, has to keep spinning no matter what. But maybe there's stuff at the bottom that's taking up more of your time than it needs to, and you'd be better served keeping some of the more important plates spinning than just spreading yourself so wide and so thin that you find yourself kind of the jack of all trades and the master of none. That's my thought on the one for the road today. I have some questions for you guys. We're going to talk in the comments. I'd like to know what you read in the month of August. If you know me at all, I engage with every single comment, as brilliant or as idiotic as they may be. And yeah, folks, we had some real winners. I got to tell you, because there's only a handful of you guys that are still around at the end of this video. I am going to devote a section in one of these videos. It might be in September, if not then for sure by August, where I am going to read the most idiotic, ridiculous, and stupid comments that I get, and I'm going to just read them to you guys. Maybe I'll block out who wrote it so they don't get roasted too badly, but some of the comments, you guys, are just like, oh my Lord, where are these people? You know, where's the rocks some people are climbing out from? But be that as it may, I will answer them anyways, and I just have a lot of fun knowing what you guys read because it helps my TBR a lot. Like many of you, I watch BookTube, and when I see people whose tastes I align with, a lot of the times I will decide my TBR based on what they're reading, but a lot of the times I get my TBR from those comments. You guys know who some of you are. I will see you guys soon. Stay positive, everybody. And of course, here's your fortune.